So we'll start again now with the policy recommendation with all the ministry present at the table, and thanks for them to be there and to explain all the situation on the ministry side. Thank you very much.
Thank you and welcome back. My name is Petra. I come from the Slovenian Ministry of Education, and I will be sort of moderating this talk today. First of all, as Evelyn mentioned, there have been some changes in the program, so we will try to keep this short and finish at once so you have enough time for lunch. I would also like to apologize to people following us on Zoom. We had some issues at the beginning. Hope you were able to plug in and follow us here on. So as we said, and as it's stated on the program, the panel discussion now is the place and room to give you feedback on policy recommendations and also on the lessons learned. So I would like to hint you, everybody, to the document that we've prepared. So here is where you will find what we try to sum up. This is a very short summary. You will also find all the QR codes for the resources that have been produced during this project and all of the lessons that we have managed to gather up. So as you can see, we focused on our, of course, primary target groups, and we focused on keeping the recommendations short and simple, keeping in mind that something like this does have an impact on one side, of course, of the countries cooperating, and at the same time, we want to have an impact or an imprint on an EU level. So if we just start, and I will ask my host, starting at the beginning, our goal was to empower teachers. Oh, I'm so sorry, so impolite of me. I'm so sorry. I forgot to introduce my co-speakers. I'm so sorry. Such a basic mistake. On my far right side, Anthony Kilcoyne from Ireland, my colleague and my boss, actually, Igor Pesek from Slovenia, Daniela from Luxembourg, Axel from France, and Giuseppina Russo from Italy. So this was the lovely group that had many discussions. And as Alan expressed before, how was it? The strong opinions and discussions. So it was small countries, I won't say in verses, small countries with big countries. Oh, look, how lovely on one side. Very well put, this was unintentional. So back to the question, thank you. Daniela, our goal was to empower teachers. That's also our main, let's say, motto and title. The resources that we have produced, the training pathway, the book, and the textbook in the end. What can we say to the people today here with us? What was the message and what was the impact that we have observed?
Okay, just like the colleagues from the evaluation already proved that we had an impact. We did well. I mean, final conference is always there for celebrating also what we achieved in that lovely but tough discussions we had. But let's be honest. I mean, everybody in the room, and especially the person sitting right and left from my side, are convinced that we delivered a solid base. And it's a good starting point, the resources that we delivered. So to be precise, we delivered a MOOC, a textbook, we had webinars set up, and we had live sessions in many of the countries. And this mixing up, this hybrid format of teacher training was very well received in all of the countries by the teachers, because in these really evolving times with AI, it's really necessary to have a solid basis, not just discussing out of the blue, having a solid basis of knowledge of terms to use or not to use is really key. And that could be delivered by a MOOC, by a textbook. But then the exchange and really the talking about use cases and what are we going to do with that, how to transpose that into the classroom is also key. So this combination was really well received, and it's a good starting point.
Thank you. Maybe if I just mention, we have people joining us on Zoom. So we have the QR code for the Menti for questions. My colleague Lina is going to revise them afterwards, but we have the slot for questions and answers. So make notes and please address them. And my colleagues will be here over the conference today and tomorrow. So you can always sort of give them a nudge and ask them additional queries. To follow up on what Daniela was saying on the hybrid format, Giuseppina, Italy also had numerous teachers attending the. How did you tackle it? How did you manage? What were the benefits?
Okay, in Italy, okay, it was really, I mean, the winning factor was really to have this hybrid form, merging the MOOC, the textbook, the open textbook, and the training pathway. This training pathway was in the framework of the objectives that we had agreed at general level, at project level, and they were then declined different. It was the training path was realized in different ways, but again, following the same objectives in the different countries. In Italy specifically, it took the form of, it had a modular structure where there were alternating modules, theoretical modules to practical modules, where the CNR researchers and trainers could guide and instruct the teachers in putting into practice what they had learned from the online, from the MOOC, and experimenting then the AI in the teachers' classrooms. So bringing back in the webinars, in this face-to-face meeting, even though online, the teachers' experiences in the classroom. And this was the real added value. I have to say that sometimes it was said also from the impact study that teachers asked for more practical things, which is true, and which was, let's say, adjusted because, you know, it's a continuous feedback loop where you learn and understand what the teacher's needs are. But on the other side, the theoretical part still has its value because it gives the background to understand, to give awareness. And also, I mean, to pose questions on risks and opportunities. I mean, we don't have the answers for everything, but we raised and posed lots of questions. And we know, let's say, we are ourselves more aware than we started. And the same, I think, happened to the teachers who are now more willing to learn more. So the, how do we say, the genie is out of the bottle and now we cannot put it back. So we have to keep working on it.
Perfect, thank you. Yes, and the key words, of course, are adaptable and answering the questions. So if we just present Axel to our audience, at first we thought that one training pathway would work for everybody. So, yeah, well, that didn't go well. We needed to adapt. And upon the first testing of the first MOOC, we realized that we needed something extra. Thus the textbook came in. Can you sort of present shortly to the audience what was the thinking behind it and how did it evolve?
Okay, thanks. So I fully agree with just as been said before. We learn a lot of things doing things. So working on this project, we learn a lot of things. On the first year, just remember that we crossed COVID time. When we were our first test in classroom, for example, was so difficult because we were not allowed to go to classroom. So the first year of this project was very difficult because it was a difficult time for everyone. We talked about doing a pathway, a training session, and obviously it was not only a point of theoretical point. We needed to practice something, meeting some teachers. And I must acknowledge that we learned a lot of things doing things with other countries. For example, when you remember the slide about the school leaders in France, we've got a trouble. We need to consider this trouble because it's so different in France than in Italy, if you remember well, or with the 4 other countries. So we need to consider something with theoretical parts. So the MOOC, very short, you said it, very simple. We assume that we need to have a first step available for everyone because the point is not to address the pioneer on IE in education, is to address everyone. For example, in France, we said, if we do not reach the 80% of the teachers, then you miss the target. The point is to address a lot of people in order to understand. And the way to succeed in that is to propose a MOOC, an open textbook to go further on if you want, if you need, when you need it. Sometimes you need to start something, practice something, and then, okay, I remember I have got an open text book to go further. On the MOOC, you've got a forum. There you can have some very good question coming from the teachers. Very good question we didn't have at the beginning of this project. So we had to mix, to have a blended approach. And from the country, we learned sometimes some country made better choice than we did in France. For example, webinar were not the good format because they were not so appreciated. It was too much theoretical, not enough time dedicated to the question, to answering question. And we know that the teacher have a lot of questions. So we thought we did well, but the 4 other countries did better webinars that we did in France, for example. And it's I was in the webinar, so I'm responsible of that. I assume that, and I have to learn from you. So that's a good point of working all together on such a difficult point, on such a difficult subject. We can learn much better working at 4, 5 countries and learning from other. And obviously, we thought we had a very good pathway. So the face-to-face sessions were good, the MOOC is good, the open textbook is good, but webinar were not that good. Dealing with the question coming from the forum, we will learn a lot of the consideration we need to address in our curricula, in the training session. And as it has been said so good at the beginning, we learn a lot and we know what is here is good, but it's only a starting point. A lot has to be done from now. And obviously, generative AI changed the game. So to what Alan said, perhaps it's a buzz for media, but it's not a buzz for AI in education. It's not a buzz at all for citizenship consideration.
Yeah, it is, and it's also a landscape that is quickly evolving and changing.
Yeah.
Which of course,
so it's difficult for us.
Yeah, the cooperation for us was very important. I think everybody learned a lot from it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, for example, in Ireland, Anthony, you had a small group of teachers, but you're also quite advanced in let's say, national policies. So how do you combine these two? On one hand, having a small scale then practice with the teachers, and then how do you moderate the conclusions from there into policy?
Yeah, thanks, Petra. I suppose maybe to look at the challenges of the randomized controlled trial for a small country like Ireland and a small representative sample like Ireland. I suppose questions came from the floor this morning, very good questions in terms of that true control group and the exposure to content. Obviously, that was a big issue for ourselves in Ireland and across the consortium in the sense of how do you maintain that level of control when the exposure to the proliferation of text in generative AI and other AI is so abundant. We did have difficulty culturally, I think, with the whole concept of a randomized controlled trial. My agency, our agency that we work with is directly funded by the ministry, and we work with all teachers very much in an elective space. So it's a choice space. So from an ethical perspective, it was difficult for us to, I suppose, restrict the level of professional learning that we were providing for the experimentation group from the control group. But what it allowed us to do, because of the numbers, was a kind of a very intensive framework of professional learning. And some of the comments that came from both Daniela and Axel there around those critical conversations, it was probably easier for us to engage in those critical conversations. We have in my organization, we look after professional learning we support professional learning, I should say, for teachers at primary and secondary levels in Ireland. So we have a small team that work with teachers. So we have those kind of instructional coaches, learning leaders that could have these conversations. I suppose the challenge then is how do you bring this back into policy? And I suppose there were methods within the randomized controlled trial that worked in terms of the pre and post testing, the qualitative piece, the mixed methods piece that we engage with in Ireland was a very important part to our work, where interviews were conducted with our participants and to try and glean, I suppose, some learnings from that. And already we're seeing kind of shoots of activity that are emerging from this policy space. I just maybe one point in terms of the kind of fidelity of implementation. That is very difficult in a very dynamic, changing arena such as AI in education. And I suppose that's one of the challenges, is to remain flexible and agile as a consortium to the changing needs as they emerge. And when you're building resources like MOOCs and textbooks and professional learning frameworks, they need to allow for that change to ensure that it's responsive enough to the needs, because some people mentioned the applied research piece, and teachers do like to see their needs responded to. A colleague of mine used to always say it's a little bit of what you need and what they feel they need and what we feel they need combined together in a cocktail. But there's a few general comments, Petra, to start off.
Yeah, maybe the implementation question is like the big elephant in the room, how to translate now the resources and the insights that we gained really into practice. And I mean, there's a lot about talking about guidances and guidelines to be issued. We're reluctant to do that, we will. But still, despite the resources that we managed to establish during the project, we also learned from each other that there are different steps to take to get towards AI in implementation. When I look at France, I'm thinking about that public-private partnership on AI that they are advancing, putting forward. Luxembourg is going more the curricular way, like having digital sciences as a new course and implementing AI into that. We have partners like going more for the digital strategy and putting AI in that corner to get that implemented. Or we have Italy like going for incentives and really building on school networks and implementing it there. So there are really different approaches to get the implementation despite or on basis of the resources spread.
Perfect, thank you. So if we follow up on guidance and we go a step in between. So Igor, for example, in Slovenia, we had a very lovely group of teachers, and we managed also to conduct a number of interviews with the headmasters, with principals, and a couple of them also comment we had a lot of luck sort of getting stuck in this project, because it was in the right spot, on the right time, everything sort of coincided. It was a very good moment in time. From the ministry's perspective, how can we help head teachers, headmasters to do a wholesome approach, not only on digital, but also on AI, because this is something that it's here. It's not, we don't have 20 years to develop.
Yeah, this is a challenge because we see headmasters or leaders of the schools as more pedagogical, and they don't have the knowledge or skills to see what is, especially in emerging technologies, what is the next steps or what could be done in the school. So I think that we are talking a lot about teachers, but the leaders are, I think, also very, very important if we want to have comprehensive approach to this subject or to this matter. So I think that one of the recommendation is also that we need to take the whole school approach, which means that we have to take care or give special attention also to the leadership. So in Slovenia, we are planning now, based also on these results, special project about leadership in the schools. So not only digital strategy, but empowering also principals or headmasters to have more wide knowledge about this and how to approach it with the school also.
Yeah, I was going to pass the word to you, and I'm going to ask you if you're going to compliment. We also discussed the inspectors and the teacher trainers. Yeah, so if you can also.
Yeah, fully agree with you, Igor. And for example, in France, we really need to think about that. For example, I do not remember if it's in Italy, you've got a Consiglio about AI. Yes, it's in Italy. The Consiglio about AI in your school. We do not have these kind of things in France at this time. So just to take a little time about that, probably it's the first time that the needs for training, for learning something are the same when you are a trainer of teachers than when you are a teacher, when you are a school leader, and when you are in France an inspector, so the one in charge of controlling how the teacher teach. it's really something different than before, because before the trainer exactly knows the subject and they know how to deal with this subject. This is not the case. And I can go further. For the ministry team, it's the same. So it's a kind of systemic needs of training session, and that's difficult. But what we can say about the MOOC, for example, or the open textbook, initially we talked about that for only teachers in secondary school in mathematics and foreign languages. If we just go a step ahead, we can say, okay, that can be useful for everyone, from primary school to secondary school, for all the trainers, for all the school leaders. I really think so. Is it enough? No, but it's here, and it has been forged by 5 countries, so it's useful and it can be used. So we can say, so again, it's a starting point. So the same needs for the first time probably I think it's really a revolution occurring. So I think it's disruptive, and we need to help everyone, and we need to work again to iterate what we've done, next step and next step and next step. But this is the first step, useful, I really think so, for everyone.
Yeah, here you go.
Just maybe a short word, because our project is named AI Formed by Teachers. And really what is important is that we discovered, and we knew it before, that it's not about putting everything on the teacher. So we don't convey the message that we now put everything, AI implementation and considerations about that, on the shoulders of the teachers. We started with the teachers. We wanted to empower them, to make them confident to teach and to tackle and to use AI in schools. But school leaders or head teachers play a crucial role in creating an atmosphere at a school where it's possible to have like this field of experimentation, to go for failure, to go for step backs, and to really set the atmosphere for that. So it's really about having a whole universe, a cosmos around the teachers, like empowering them.
Yes, and if I may add something, okay, normally we must admit it, ministries, we are, let's say, because of bureaucracy, we are a bit slow. So in this case, we were ahead of times, because the project started when really no one cared a lot, let's say, didn't care a lot about artificial intelligence. And insofar, I think that as ministries, we were like together within the Delta group, we were pioneers in understanding the importance, the revolutionary importance that this disruptive technology would have gained in the coming years. And I mean, so the future, we often talk about AI as something that will happen in the future, but the future is here. And this time the ministries were together, of course, with the partnership. We are 17 partners. We grasped the opportunity and we started working on this. So we want now to build on the experience and go forth in a more maybe systematic way. And as we said before, one of the things we really learned was the value of being together, the power of the partnership. Probably if we had been alone due to multiple difficulties we encountered for different reasons, we would have given up. But this didn't happen because we were a powerful European, let's say, partnership. And we don't want to lose this power, this strength, and in a way to go on with the, I mean, there's a lot to do in AI. So we have just started, as we said, the journey. And so also today there were multiple questions, I think, and it's not said that we always have the answers. So that's why we want to go forward and keep the leadership as ministries in the teacher training, because this is the key then, teacher professional development.
Yes, because teachers have a very strong influence, of course, on students. And for Slovenia, we had a very, like I've already mentioned, a nice group of teachers participating, a lovely group of schools. And we actually managed, this was one of those projects that we gathered the feedback of over 5,000 students, which was a very good number for us, especially since we didn't do such a survey before. It was an indirect, this was not something that we would follow up as what were the results, but it was their perceptions. Igor, how would you comment?
I would say expected that that the students know these applications of AI in the sense that it's visible in the translators or search engines, or I would say also in Duolingo or some these kind of applications. But if we ask them, can you describe the AI? They answer with very confused, I would say, words. So they actually do not know the meaning or the how AI actually works. So this is, as I said, expected somehow results, because we don't have yet in the curriculum any content about AI. So, but we know that this will be part of their life, so we should have all the energy towards this to include it in the curriculum. And Slovenia is in the process of curricular change, but since this is very new, we have quite a challenge to convince the experts and those groups to include it in the sensible ways, not just mentioning. So I think that this is this moment quite crucial to do it, because we know that curricula are changing very slow, or in Slovenia every 10 years or even more. So if we don't do it now, we will have a problem in the future.
Yeah, two brief points, Petra. I suppose there's a need here for the longitudinal piece. That's one thing we all learned as a consortium, that we've mentioned students, we've mentioned school leaders. It's difficult to I suppose, work in all those areas over in a short scale project such as this. So the need for longitudinal because I suppose impact and changes is very subjective, and learner outcomes very subjective in any space in education. So we need to have that kind of support. And another point there in terms of the leadership piece, we know school leaders as the gatekeepers are so important, but at a system level, I think we've all learned, even though we have different kind of infrastructures in terms of organizations, but to have our inspectorate, our curriculum developers, our policy designers, our teacher educators, all in the one conversation is going to be crucial here, because we will, if we can support that alignment at that level, it will only support the school leader at the school level to implement a consistent change across the sector, I suppose.
Perfect, thank you. I'll just continue with you, if I may. So this is, I'm going to stay with you. So Ireland is very proactive, let's say, even from the policy side. What are your key, let's say, benefits? How do you see the benefits of cooperating in such projects? To describe it very briefly.
Yeah, I think in terms of our work, we do have, like, we have a digital learning framework, we do have policy pieces. The challenge for a country, it's interesting, I'm sitting on the periphery here of the panel, and Ireland being a peripheral country, it's just so important for us from a system perspective to get that trust piece, for teachers and school leaders to have trust in policy. I think it's helped by being part of a consortium of countries like this, to know that I think there's sometimes an eagerness to respond when maybe often the right thing is to not quite respond at that time, and you get great reassurance from other countries that we're all thinking the same things. It will look different in our contexts, but we have a similar approach to it. So I think it's really, really important for all countries, but in particular a country like ours, to have the assurance and access to the expertise in a big consortium like this to implement policy change in our countries.
Okay. Yeah, Daniela?
Maybe just to add, not only the international collaboration piece, but also, I mean, in all of the countries, there's a lot about talking about evidence-informed policy making or co-creation of these AI tools together with the business, with the teachers. And so, as we said, as you stated, we're missing out on students in our project. We're missing out on companies. That was not in the scope, so it's perfectly fine, but still it's a starting point. And really, this was a key learning for me out of the project, also in terms of collaboration, that having like researchers, policymakers and teachers together and trying to de-jargonize and trying to understand each other and trying to understand the constraints from each side, is really helpful. And yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. So we have additional 15 minutes. So I would open the floor. I have numerous questions, but I would open the floor to you. And I would ask Lina.
There's any question from the mentee for now?
No questions from the mentee.
It's not working?
Okay, I'll check.
Okay.
Try now. Nevertheless,
Question in the room.
yeah, any questions in the room?
Yes, no, that works.
It's working?
Yeah, but I don't have any questions for now. So you can
Okay.
slide when it starts.
Okay, perfect. So if no questions, we'll continue on this. With the resources we've developed, of course, we always have that aspect of, I mean, it's also one of the key aspects. So the ethical implications of the tools and of course the GDPR. And what we've tried to include also some companies into the project to offer to teachers to let's say, play with, to deal with, to test them and try them. And of course, there is that issue of the majority of the tools, if you want to access them fully, you need to pay for them. So how can from the lessons learned from the project, Axel, how can we support the message to schools, to teachers?
Tomorrow, you can join the workshop where you can meet some companies where they've got some subject based on AI in order to assist teachers. So you said it before, we need 3 parts in order to success. Teachers, obviously, school, research, obviously, to keep the way on science and science only. It's not Pudlard school, it's science, it's a democratic school based on science, evidence-based if we can. And it's really helpful to have some companies in order to do some software that are compliant with all what we need. GDPR compliant, security compliant, adapt for the young people with special needs. So it's very difficult to do stuff for a whole country or for a continent. Another part for the working with the company is at this time, Europe is at a turning point. It has everything in order to succeed. The university, the companies, the brain in order to succeed. But at this time, we use mainly software made by California-centric approach. So we need to deal with that. We need to make decision, and the good way of that is to make work all together, research, school, and companies, because we've got everything to succeed in Europe, but it's now and not in 10 years. Or we will use for 1 century the software made by other people with other value, which can be very different from the values that we share in Europe and that we share in our 5 countries. So it's so important to always consider 3 entrants. Sometimes we can work with 2 of them, it's good, but having the 3 points of entrance, the one with company, school, and research, is a good way in order to succeed and to stay in science only for AI in humanity. But the point is, for example, in France, we develop, you mentioned it, Daniela, thanks for that. We got an innovation partnership based on AI. The point is to stay on an assistant based on AI to the teacher. The one in charge, the one competent about teaching is always a teacher. So for example, for the slide of Alain, we only assume to stay on the 2 first points. The point is not to replace the teacher. We do not want that. Yeah. We want to assist the teacher to help him teaching better if it can. And there is a very good point for the student. It's now that we can deal with them with opportunity, with new jobs. If we do not deal with that at school, we will be a continent declining for sure. But so it's not a question of future, it's a question of now, and it's an urgency, I think, everything so.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, if I may, so we have a question for Anthony. Actually, it's 2 questions that will be linked. So the first one is, how would be the best way of bringing teachers' unions on board, entering AI schools? Maybe other ministers can also answer to this. And the second question that is linked to that is, what is the key message from teachers from the project?
Thanks, Lena, for a difficult, challenging question. In terms of the teacher unions, and the teacher unions have a very important voice in the Irish context, in particular, and a very supportive voice of teachers. I think the key piece here is the evidence base, and what Axel just spoke about there in terms of the teacher leading and the direction of travel here in terms of change. We're not saying that there's any change. Yes, the role changes, but the importance of the role of the pedagogue, of the teacher, doesn't change. It actually gets accentuated in this space. I think that should I suppose appease or support the thinking of teacher unions. I think my original point of bringing all stakeholders into that same conversation and listening to the challenges of it. I think the critical engagement, we've talked about the critical engagement of teachers, which can be supported through networks and community practice and so on, and collaboratives. But there's also that critical engagement at system level to make sure that we're listening to all those concerns and potential risks, because no one stakeholder has the answers here, and want to try and make sure that we mitigate against as many risks as possible through that open dialogue. So that's what I'd be encouraging, would be that open dialogue of all stakeholders and partners that have teaching and learning at the heart of their work.
Yeah, there are many questions also from the research field. So there is the question of what would be the main question that should be researched, seen by the ministries, and how it could be integrated in the policy making. There is no finalist for this one, so it's an open question.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, the point is how to do things for real in classroom in order to be helpful for the teacher, so that the student learn better using digital technology. To do so, we need to accept to take some risk, to test something. And what we did in France is what we started some thematics work group led by researchers. For example, one is led by Colleen about, okay, how you deal in the classroom about generative AI in your teaching, the way you use this kind of technology. We assume to take a long time, 3 years time, because science need times to prove something. And you know, the time of political attendees are very different of the time of scientific proof. So sometimes we want to prove something fast, and this is not science. So we need to assume that, okay, let's take a little bit of time to research and to say, okay, this was a good way or this was a wrong way, but it's very fun. We need to start now to test something for real in classroom. So the expectation really is to be much more practical. And in France, we've got perhaps a trouble with that. We are quite a theoretical part. And we said, okay, you need to learn like that. But the teacher, just all the teachers and said, and the French one too, we need much more practical test, and let us test something and let teach us or just share the way we can test something for mathematical or foreign languages, exactly. But we need obviously science to accept to have a partial conclusion. So we do not need to wait for the final conclusion of science, because it takes too much time. So just accept to be in a gray area to make some partially good decision. And that's the way you go a step ahead, a step ahead, a step ahead. Much better than staying just at the same point and say, okay, I do not see, I do not hear, I do not talk. That's not that easy to understand in the ministry.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a very, very big point. And to answer a better question about the risk, on this kind of risk, the major risk is do not deal with AI in education. This is a major risk, because you will have a school not dealing with real world for the student we are in charge of.
And maybe just to complement what Axel has been saying, I feel like we could go 2 tracks at least for research, like doing that, as you said, applied research use cases really well accompanied by research, gaining and getting empirical data to really prove and to be able to rearrange where we are heading. And on the other hand, what Anthony was just saying, more the longitudinal studies, really seeing what is the impact or what is changing on the long term. I would see these 2.
Also was just thinking something else on another note, complementing what you were saying. At the same time, I think we should keep working on competencies. on transversal skills. Of course, technical skills are needed and we should go on with this, but at the same time, in parallel, we need to keep investing on transversal skills, which are also those which help the teachers and the students to gain the critical thinking or to understand what is true, what is false in the era of artificial intelligence. So we cannot give up on the transversal skills. We still remain an asset, I think, in education. So.
Thank you. And Lina, I wanted to pick up on the other question. So what was the general feedback from the teachers? Yes. So on one hand, we would invite everybody to go to our website where we have the deliverables, resources. We have the deliverables from each package, work package, and there you will find the results from the evaluation, and we've included feedback from the teachers. But generally, let's say a general feedback that we did cover the basics, but more practical stuff is needed. Yes, so this would be somewhat of a generalization, if I may put it like that. So we do have some quotes, direct quotes from the teachers in the evaluation, and of course from the principal interviews, headmasters. So you can read those in the evaluation. Maybe we have time, Lina, for one question.
Yes, actually, I was going to answer to that question, like saying also there are some questions about methodology on the experimentation. So actually, if you go into the website, there is also the experimentation report, where you have the methodology, so you have all the criteria of how schools, pupils, teachers were selected and how they implemented the training pathway. So you have all of the information there. And there's maybe a final question for you. So what should be the main focus areas of teachers' professional development in the area of AI during the next 6 to 12 months? So the main focus areas for teachers' professional development.
Go ahead.
So very easy. I fully agree with Giuseppina. Media literacy is the main point. So it's transversal point. It's not about mathematics. It's not about foreign languages. It's about criticism. It's a crucial part to be a citizenship éclairé. Highlight citizenship in order to do some free choice in their life. The point is not our generation, it's the generation we are in charge of. And if we miss that, let's consider what will happen in USA for the election. Let's see what will happen in the media with deepfake for images. We are all focused on text, but what will happen with image will be crucial. So media literacy, for me, it's a main point.
Just a quick point in terms of our own work, the co-creation based on the needs of the teachers. We want to talk to more teachers about their current uses and practice. So we've that practice informed national practice emergence. That's a big piece for us, is to talk to more and more teachers about their current practice, because we don't know where we are in this hype piece, really.
I mean, yeah, just to be on schedule and for you to have enough time for lunch. So this was really a very valuable learning process for all of us. And from the project side, I think especially the ministries had a very, very good discussion on how, what, when, and why, and comparing and trying to sort of gear together a project that needs to be done hand in hand with being so different among each other. So we strongly believe in the resources that we have produced, keeping in mind and knowing very well that this is the basic things that are covered. So we invite you to share the MOOC, the open textbook. They're all in 5 languages. Since this is open source and CC licensed, translations are also very welcome. Just contact us. We have some basic guidelines. This is EU co-funded, so the basic guidelines must be taken into consideration. And of course, follow what we have tried really hard to implement what we have done into the systems, put them into national platforms, invited teachers. In Slovenia, we are striving very hard to put them into following projects on national level. So this is something that, as a discussion between countries, has been very, very, very much important, and of course in the nick of time. So this was perfect. So
yeah, only one thing.
Yes, of
course.
Giuseppina.
I just wanted to say that the project existed because the teachers were there and they are here. So I wanted to thank all of them also for the active participation in the interactive part in this community building, because we were really able then to create a community, also thanks to the international webinars we did. So I really wanted to thank all the teachers who engaged in this experimentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Giuseppina, for that note. Yeah, we have teacher presentations tomorrow from the project, so you are very much welcome. This afternoon, we have very interesting workshops. We invite you to participate in, don't miss them out. Discussions, hands-on tips, roundtables also. So we encourage you to stay with us. I mean, the weather is very poor outside, so don't go.